like sponsored content creates some real vulnerabilities there, right? I mean, like how do you know between what's a brand message and what is a news message, and how do you navigate all that stuff? We're not going to get into the intricacies of political reporting and dealing with bias, but we are going to talk about a little bit about what we do with native content and how that has sort of transformed, in some senses, the advertising products that we offer to clients. So, like when you guys think about native content or sponsored advertising or sponsored content or whatever you call it, like how do you know? Like, do you have a way that you sort of define that culturally in your organization in terms of what's the difference between news content and what's the difference between native or sponsored content?
I mean, sponsored content, anything anybody's paying us to put up, is not display advertising. And we definitely define it differently and make sure that the reader knows that it's paid for content.
Yeah, we basically, for the most part, I mean, I think we're a work in progress when it comes to sponsored content. I think we would offer a variety of things as they came to us, or if people asked us, depending on what it was. But for the most part, we have mostly articles that people want us to publish, and often it's like a column, or could be a regular column, could be just on a specific event that they want to promote. Or we also do something that I consider sponsored content that we call an unclassified classified, which is basically because we don't have a classified section, tried it, didn't work, bad idea. But we still get requests occasionally for them. So job announcements, that kind of thing. And so we actually post that and we label it as sponsored content, and that's just another way to give people an option for something that they're trying to do that is more of a classified format.
The way that we look at it is we define native advertising or sponsored content as a piece of arguably valuable information that was either given to us or produced by us that's aim is to achieve a specific market objective, whatever that is. Sell cars, increase awareness, but there's a market objective to this piece of information. And the reason I don't go ahead.
Is this like you're discussing advertorial? It's an advertorial piece. What's the difference between sponsored content and advertorial?
I think it's nomenclature.
Okay.
Quite honestly,
It's the new way of talking about
it's
advertorial.
semantics. There'll be a new word that'll come up next year that will
That's right.
ditch sponsored content and call it something else.
Yeah. It's a good question. Thank you for asking.
So one question I have is when we talk about sponsored content, like my newspaper might have a food critic who is sponsored by the Restaurant or Hotel Association, but they don't dictate anything about his content. He can rip anybody up he wants to. But that's a little bit different, I think, than what you're talking about, more sponsored content in which the content is more determined not by the newsroom but by the advertiser or by the sponsors, right?
Right, and you have to, I mean, the reality of this is no matter how big you can have an organization of one or you can have an organization of 100, and you have to navigate the ethical line between the newsroom. If you're an organization of one, you have to navigate that in your own head, right? Does this feel right? I don't know. This feels kind of weird. I just kind of feel slimy right now. This probably I should have, but that's a lot of money, I mean, you have to. That's the dialogue that you have to have with yourself. In a larger organization, you have that between your managing editor and your salespeople, and that dialogue has to happen for it to be healthy. And I know that happens in our organization a lot, where salesperson A comes up with an idea, and it's like, hey, couldn't we do this? And then, managing editor B looks at us and says, you're batshit, that's not going to work. But the difference is, in today's world, door number 3 often opens, which is, no, that won't work, but if we do this, we can make that work. Like, that can be okay. We can live, like, this can be livable. We need to either label it differently, or we need to alter what we need to take another look at what the FTC says that we need to do that makes it legal, because the FTC has issued guidelines on this, and if you're running native content, you probably should download those and look at them, because they're pretty specific about what they think native content is, and native advertising is, and what it isn't.
Yeah.
What about you guys? I mean,
Facebook also, they'll take your post down if you don't. tag the company. I think you have to apply for that. It's not a default. But you can tag the post as a sponsored.
I was really worried about it when I first started doing it, that readers would get confused or they would somehow call us out for not being clear enough, misleading them in some way, selling out. I was worried about that, but that has not happened because we are very clear about it, and I think we communicate a lot about the fact that we have to make a living, and this is one way that we make a living, and we're sorry that, you know, if I mean, that was in my head what I would say to those people if they said it, but they haven't. It's kind of like, you know, we
Prepared for the conversation.
once again, you know, I think we have to continually remind readers that, you know, this is just another tool in the toolbox you have to bring in revenue so that we can continue to bring you news. And if it means sponsored content and you don't like it, then give me some money or something. But anyway, that's another story. Yeah.
So let's sort of, like, for the purposes of us, like, for everybody to get as much out of this as they can, let's all imagine ourselves to be ethical people who make good decisions in the best environment with the best interests of our readers, and we believe in the FTC, and we don't want to, we're not interested in pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. So let's use that as like a table stake and say we really want to do this, but we want to do it well. So maybe we should talk through some ideas and show of hands, like who's publishing what they would consider sponsored content now. Who? Shout it out. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm interested to hear, like, I want to steal your best ideas.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I think the key for us is to make sure that that content is hyperlocal.
Okay.
So if it's like a restaurant opening or an event, that kind of thing, our readers do not care if it's sponsored or not. The one time that we did something that was out of market, actually it was overseas, we got some pushback.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was for us the key. is
So
keep
for
it
you,
local.
locality matters. Like, it needs to matter to the reader that is actually engaging with your normal news content.
We offer two types of sponsored content. One where it's provided by the advertiser or business, and the other where we provide editorial services, and we write it. We have a separate set of writers. They're not part of the standard news team, and they write sponsored content, and they write it really from the voice of the user or the layperson rather than from the voice of the advertiser. And those do very well because they're also a little tongue-in-cheek. You know, people enjoy reading it because it's you know, it's relevant. It doesn't feel like an ad, and usually it's useful information.
Just a second. I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. You have separate writers that are handling all the business side content. Are they on the payroll, or do you
They're
freelance them?
freelancers.
Okay.
They're freelancers.
That's a great idea.
So you build their cost into the cost of the content.
Yes. And we're in Brooklyn. We're in Brooklyn, New York. We're in Brooklyn. But yeah, there's a clear line between, I'm on the business side, between editorial and between business. And we get requests all the time where, well, do you have to really label this sponsored? Yes, we do. And if they're not willing, if they don't want us to do that, then we won't publish it. We're not going to compromise what we do for the sake of an advertising.
We have a separate writer too who writes just sponsored content, branded content, whatever you want to call it. And on the page we have a box that says produced for, and whoever that content was produced for, there's a little logo that under produced for with their it's hyperlinked. You can go to their site, and it gives a little bit about that organization, usually taken from their mission statement or whatever. And under that, we have a hyperlink that gives a little bit more about our branded content and what our standards are.
Do you guys put that in your advertising well or your editorial well?
When you say in your well, what do you mean?
Well, many sites have a section where something is clearly paid advertising, right? And others where it's clearly editorial. And so some sponsored content, I think, I'm interested in So some sponsored content, they try to masquerade as editorial by, at least through the placement in the editorial well, even though there's disclosure there that it's paid, but it's in the editorial well, and it's kind of, I guess, meant to deceive readers,
No,
as opposed to putting it in the advertising rail, so that it's clearly advertising for you readers.
it's not in the advertising rail. I think we could probably do a better job. It's in certain locations. It's not in the advertising rail, but it is in certain locations. We don't mix it with news. I think we could do a better job of labeling it on our homepage, if that's what you're talking about. But on the page itself, there's no doubt at all who paid for it. It says this was produced for, by, and we have our tax name, and then we have the name of the website, and it doesn't, and we make it clear that it was not produced by the website. It was produced by a different name.
Is anybody doing content or producing content that's different than article and picture? And if you are, what are you doing? I know Field does a ton of that, so you do a ton of video, don't you?
What are y'all doing?
Video, I think I saw you talk about it last year.
What sort of subject matter? Like, well, again, I want to steal your ideas. So
Quasi-governmental organizations tend to use us for things like that, like water authorities and transportation, that kind of stuff. And it's basically, it looks like news. It's kind of done in a news style, but when we post it, it's a sponsored post on top.
You put it in the video that it's sponsored?
Not in the video, no.
Actually, I have a question. I'm interested because what you're saying here, basically, it's predicated on the fact that we have a rigid site structure, that we have these predefined wells. How many of you are still using that predefined rigid structure versus a more dynamic, user-centric website?
Our structure is the content is labeled, but it just sort of weaves in depending on where it's appropriate. But we label it. I mean, we're 100% into the reader knowing that it's a sponsored piece, but the way that our site is designed, we try to weave that in.
So I'm looking at this very practically. So last year when I gave this conference, I was opposed to sponsored content, and my wife was pushing me, saying, this is going to be. And so I said, all right, I'm going to dip my toe into the sponsored content thing, even though the journalist in me says it's not a good idea. And we came up with a great idea that I have a music website, and so venues, these really great concert venues or whatever, we decided to approach them with sponsored content. And so we actually write the story about the venue. And what my point was is to make it valuable to the readers. I want the readers to get something out of this. I want to write this or control who writes this. And so it worked out really well in the sense I got a couple of venues to try this out. We do a story about the venue. We do a little video. We do a photo gallery from concerts that were there, and it's great. But the cost involved for me to produce this wonderful sponsored content versus the amount of money I'm getting in revenue from it has made me balk a little bit, or decided I may have to charge more, which means advertisers are less likely to do it. So the question I have for people that are doing this regularly is, what is the difference in cost between selling a regular ad for you guys versus what you charge for sponsored content?
I'll kick it to you guys too.
A lot of our sponsored content, truthfully, is built bundled with the display advertising. It's kind of a bonus.
So you sell your ads and then you charge more if they do a sponsored content?
Yeah, or if they'll do like a certain level, throw in an article with that.
Right. Yeah, and I would say that you have to look at it differently. If you go to the advertising seminar, they will tell you this. You shouldn't worry about charging more. Because the truth is, I know that's counterintuitive because we all think nobody's going to pay more. I can't raise my ad rates. I can't do that. But the truth is that you have to get value out of your time, or it's not worth it. And it's not worth doing, even though you may have fun doing it, even though it looks great, even though your advertisers love it. You have to get what you're worth. And if people like what you do, you have to put a price tag on it that reflects your work. So do not hesitate to charge more. That's what I would say.
Back up.
In the packages that you put together where it's an upsell to have an article written for a market, how does the upsell cost compare percentage-wise with the base ad?
Yeah, I sort of know that
Well,
too.
really, we don't up, so we just say if you do this package, you will get, it's not like an upsell, truthfully.
I mean, don't you just sell ads separately too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what?
It's kind of a benefit to get that.
Yeah. That's,
I mean,
again,
yeah.
what would be the percentage difference then? Like, if you sell an ad for $100, what would you charge to have the package with, to include an article?
I mean, they would need to do like a, you know, it's usually the top, our top advertiser would get a $1,500 level and all. That's where you get an article or a giveaway or a little video.
So you just throw that in as no
Yeah.
extra
I
charge.
mean, not all the time. We do charge some, but I'd say the majority of it.
I think what you're hearing here is sometimes we're kind of fluid, at least I'm just going to speak for myself. I'm very fluid sometimes, and I give my advertising salesperson permission to be very fluid about what is it going to take to bring that advertiser on board. And if you want to sweeten the pot by adding a little bit more to it, you decide whether that means charging them an extra $100 or giving it to them for free. How long are they advertising for? It's an art and a science, and I encourage people to be creative about that because you know your people best.
You had a question.
Oh, no, I just wanted to throw this in there about, you know, that we're talking about the placement. So we actually, we write for different news organizations and other corporate organizations. And we write like with Uriah for Potomac Local, we write their native ads. And we do for other organizations, and it's all different. It's like, you know, Uriah's it'll say, you know, here's the article, but it's mixed in with other articles, but it'll say sponsored. You know, another one, you know, this person does it, like sticks everything under one column, you know, it's a taking care of business kind of a column. And there's always a little blurb about the company at the bottom, which is very obvious, like this is an ad, but it doesn't say, you know, sponsored content. And then in terms of the pricing issue, they have different packages, like you were saying, that some people would get, they would buy an ad, they would buy the sponsored article, and that they would also get the like extra social media attached to that. And then you could ramp down also. So it's just, it's interesting to see that everybody has a different model.
Related to the pricing strategy, I used to approach it like you two do. And then about a year and a half ago, I switched and said, wait a minute, the most profitable thing I do is whip up a 300 by 250 ad and run it for 250,000 impressions.
Yeah.
That's the most profitable thing I do because I set it in there, I price it according to the market or what the advertiser is willing to pay and the placement that it's in, and the system takes care of it. And that's, you know what the most costly thing I do is sponsored content.
That's true.
Because I've got to figure out, you know, what all that time is worth, right? That folks invest into it. And so what we've done on the business side is flip it and say, look, you need to calculate the cost based on $150 an hour, because that's what we're worth. And how did I get to $150 an hour? I called an ad agency and a PR agency, and I asked, so if I want you to come in and talk to us about how to do this project better, like what's this cost? Well, we normally charge $150 an hour, and that's how I came up with my price point. Because I think that we're at least, and I think that everybody, like I would encourage everybody in this room to say, hey, you know what, we are content experts. Maybe the best content experts in our entire community. We're probably worth what some random PR agencies come charging. We're pretty good at this whole content thing. So maybe we're worth more than we're charging. And so we flipped it. And so for us, if you want to engage us on sponsored content, we flipped it and said, you know what, we're really good at this. So this is not going to come cheap. You know, this is the Cadillac for us. If you want to engage, you know, if you want me to engage our newsroom, or you want us to hire freelance videographers, or you want us to come and do your video for your hospital or whatever, it's gonna cost. We're gonna make it awesome.
So you get pushed back?
Well, you know what we do? We do less unprofitable business.
Yeah, because you make it worth it. You're doing what
You
is
know,
going to give
the
you profit.
business that we do is impactful and it's profitable, and we do less stuff that we're mad about because we did a crappy deal and now we're spending 6 hours in Premiere for $200 because scope creep happened and the client once they're on their 17th revision.
Yeah.
And so we just sort of stopped doing that, or we tried to limit it as much as we could.
We're very clear with sponsored content, especially if we are providing editorial services. There's only one set of revisions. It's very cut and dry. And, we raised even content where they're providing for us, we raised our prices 40%, and nobody balked last year. And then we really raised the price for where we write it, and nobody balked either. So, there's something to be said for them to hire a writer, because more than likely, unless they're a professional organization and they do this for a living, they don't have somebody who can write in that way. So for us to provide that writer, they would pay a lot more. And plus it's content for us. Content never expires, so there is value for that. So in Google, when people are searching, it's another mention for them. We also, all sponsored content immediately also goes out on social, gets placed in our newsletter. So there is value for it, and one day, one sponsored piece is similar to 1 month of an ad. So, if you do that 5 days a week, it can be a lot more profitable and doesn't clutter your site.
So you have,
Sorry. Go ahead. We'll bounce right to you.
so we receive press releases from our community all the time. Businesses opening, we often will send a reporter out because it's, we want to support local business and such. Do you withhold coverage from, say, a business that's open?
I'll ask you
Unless
guys.
they buy an ad and get sponsored content.
This
No,
is- Go ahead.
no, but I'm tempted all the time. Tempted all the time, and mad a lot of the time
Yep.
when they keep coming back and asking me and never support us, and that drives me crazy. But here's what I tell people: if somebody has some kind of a milestone event coming up, like an anniversary or I've been in business for 5 years or whatever, I'm going to have a little party. We'll cover that because we think that's newsworthy and we want to support the business community. But if it's just a run-of-the-mill press release about whatever, then we're just not going to do that unless we find news value in it. But I think it's a fine line because you do, on the one hand, you want to support the business community because you feel like that's good for the community. But on the other hand, if you're not seeing the return, it's hard to sometimes swallow that.
What about you, Phil?
I couldn't really hear the question.
You get the press releases, like,
Well, we get a press release from the hospital. They've got a new machine that they're in their cancer ward that they're going to be using.
it's clearly going to benefit their brand if you cover it.
Oh yeah, I mean we got a few companies that we won't run their press releases, the hospital specifically, but for the most part.
I would like to share a quick story about something, a way I turned that around, and I've tried it many times, it doesn't always work, but I actually got a request from our local, one of our downtown business association. They wanted to write a quarterly column, the president. And he said, I was just kind of checking in to see what your requirements are and all that. And I said, I guess here's what I'd say. I see you guys throwing money out at regional advertising, like the NPR station and things outside of our community all the time. You collect money, you collect dues from your members, and you throw it out into the community, but you don't ever give it back to me. So how about if you pay me for that column quarterly? And I said it in a nicer way than that, but they did, they took it. So you have to start creatively thinking about how to turn it around to your advantage.
I find that there's some categories of business that will get enough traffic as a story to make it worth running their press release, and it's generally new restaurants opening.
Yeah,
And other categories of business, nobody reads the stuff, so I'm not going to take the time to give them free PR. when
Right.
they won't buy an ad.
Yeah, it's a news judgment thing, right, to an extent. I wanted to I know you had asked us that question.
Well,
Did you want to follow up on that or something different?
Well, one thing I was wondering is, it's kind of different. What degree of brand integration do you allow, and do you limit it in any way? Meaning for the sponsor, the brand integration, or for their mention or direct, direct mentions of products or services, do you restrict anything?
Right. In terms of, give an
In
example.
your creation, I mean, we have a sponsored content client that is the local power ward. They sell TV, internet, electricity, that sort of thing. We try to do content for them that's more educational information, focused on the reader. We don't really allow them to pitch specific products, that sort of thing.
We don't.
I'm just curious, how much you'll mention the advertiser, or is there a limit where you say, listen, we don't.
Well,
I can't let you say this.
The FTC is pretty clear that that the person buying that piece of content cannot make a direct ask.
Right.
So, if they want to pitch 25% off on mattresses, the FTC is pretty clear. So it's nice that the government has given us a way to say to Johnny, sorry, dude, we got to take that paragraph out because you can't pitch your mattress special. If you want to talk about different mattresses and how they help people sleep better, that's fine. I mean, we can talk about that. We can talk about sleep. We can talk about sleep apnea. We can talk about, getting a good night's rest, all that stuff, which everybody's going to know is in advertising anyway, but we're going to label it, but you can't pitch, your 4th of July mattress spectacular. And we have there's sponsored content people all the time that want to do that. Why not? Well, because you can't. And that's sort of become the answer.
Yeah.
Have there been any real repercussions? Like, have publications done something like that, and then the FTC fined them or something? Like, what could happen?
I don't know. At scale, probably. I know that there has been the FTC has just recently cracked down on influencer marketing on Instagram and social media, where like Kim Kardashian's walking around with a particular brand of purse all the time and talking about how awesome this purse is, and I just got this purse that's so gray. Well, when they find out that she got $150 grand to do that Instagram post, and none of that is disclosed, well, the FTC tends to frown on that. For us, I don't know what anybody else says. That's just a nice way for me to say it's my nice easy door to say sorry, we can't do that. Do I think they're really going to come and crack down on this? No, but it's a nice way for me to be able to just say no, sorry.
Another area that we've been doing is sponsored events or sponsored event listings, because everyone has an event and everyone wants you to put it. We do an events roundup, so we started charging for that. Same with our real estate roundup, and it's not a lot. It's like $40, but it helps defray. It's just another piece of income. It's easy. They fill out a form. They submit their event. It goes to editorial, and it's labeled that it's sponsored, and they get it in there. So, because it's constant. Otherwise, you're just always fielding these. Should I? Shouldn't I? Especially if it's a very specific audience that is trying to cater to, or whatever, and most people are willing to pay if they want it to be in that short list of events. They're willing to pay for it.
So it's not like a calendar; it's much more specified.
Yeah, we have a calendar which is free, and
Right.
they can up it self-serve.
Yeah.
But every week we do a events roundup,
Yeah.
and they pay to be in there. So
That's
it's
cool.
just another, way. And the same again, like I said, with the real estate roundup. And even now we're doing gift guides for the holidays, and we're doing a kind of a curated list. And if they want to be in that
Right.
gift guide, they pay. And it's a benefit to them. It's not that much.
And your events listing is marked as sponsored.
Yes, when
People
they
know
pay for
that
it,
they were
yes.
paid to be in there.
You have it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if any of you fact check any of the information that's in your sponsored content. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, it is a news site, and so what if somebody says, oh, studies show that X mattresses are so much better than these other mattresses, and we're the only ones who kind of sell X mattresses. I mean, does anybody fact check that if it's going to be on your website, or does anybody check to make sure?
Everything on our site that goes up runs through an editorial gate. Fact checking in its most in its most pure form, probably not, just because there isn't the resources to do that. But yeah, it runs through an editorial gate. I'm sure it does with you guys as well.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that to an extent we're small enough that the people who purchase sponsored content from us, usually there's an element of trust there, but if something doesn't sound right or read right, we would certainly question it. But we generally trust that what they're supplying us is accurate.
So, I have a question, because there's a lot of companies, so like we work with corporations and small businesses, and so like I want to give back and say to my clients, why don't, hey, this would be a really good venue for you on top of what you're doing. So what advice would you give to someone like me if I'm trying to sell my clients on publishing with you guys also because we have a relationship? Is that a weird question? Am I saying that right?
I think so.
Like with Uriah, like I want to establish a thing with Uriah and I say, hey, I work with Uriah, this is great. I think you should do some sponsored content with Uriah. And then Uriah says XYZ. But like what would I say to clients like in my area that want to expand their reach and say maybe go out and
Well, you can act. I mean, in the most traditional way would be to act as an ad agency for that client, to act as a representative for that client, and say for you to contact Uriah and say, okay, Uriah, if I bring you a client, what's it going to cost me for you to put content up? And Uriah is going to give you a number of X, right? This is what I'm going to bill you for that client. You're going to bill your client X plus 20%. You're going to figure out what your markup is to bring that client to Uriah, so you're actually acting as an ad agency for your client, saying, hey, we have this great relationship, but I know you want to grow into Mansfield, Ohio, or wherever. You're opening a store there. I know a guy. Here's, let me either, you can do it one of two ways. You can refer him to me directly, if you're thinking about me, or you can say, hey, I know a guy, I'm going to make a call, we'll get your content posted there, and I'll come back to you with a price. And, I know that you're out, you brought me the client, so I'm going to do it for X, and then I'll give you enough room that you can mark it up so you can make a little bit of money on it at the end. And your client wins because he or she's grown her reach in the target area that they want to grow their reach.
I actually have someone, so I'll talk to you after. I have someone who's trying to expand through the country that I don't
You should talk to everybody.
Yeah, talk to everybody.
Can you all talk to me about a coffee guy?
Yes. You might be able to reach millions of people for that.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk to you.
Phil, I think you talked about this last year a little bit. You do podcasts, and how do you sell advertising on podcasts or on your native content videos? How do those ads appear?
We don't do podcasts, so we don't do ads on the video.
So
the video is the ad.
The video is it. Yeah. So there's not like a separate ad piece that's part of it.
One thing. Go ahead.
We used to run some video ads, but they were.
One thing, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to that. One thing that we did this year, we're just toward the end of our election season with ballots in front of voters right now for local races. And one thing I've done for the last several years is interview with various candidates on video. We have a separate video studio. And we had been trying for a while to get like a bank or somebody to sponsor the interviews. And we finally did get someone. And it was a local branch manager. And she came in and she recorded a message, a 15-second message, which we put at the beginning of every single one of the candidate videos. And it was just, we're proud to sponsor this video. We hope that you make an informed choice in the election. End of that. And it was great. And it's what I hope to do more of. And it was an easy way to be able to pay, at least for my videographer, to do the videos.
Can you disclose what type of budget something like this was?
I charged, it wasn't enough. But it was a start. We'll say that. I had high hopes it was going to be way more. But so what she said was, she said my local budget is only $500 to do this. And I said, well, and I was asking for $1,500, but that was for 3 cities, so I'll give you 1 city. You pick which one. Just do what you have to do.
I was a little surprised to hear you guys juxtapose sponsor content versus banner ads. And my click-through rate on my banner ads is so low that I've kind of viewed them as practically worthless, and maybe that's not the way to look at it. Is it, Phil? You said you kind of throw in sponsored content as a bonus, I throw in the banner ad as a bonus. Am I looking at this wrong, or no? I'm totally.
It sort of depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? I mean, the value of a banner ad is, in public perception, is clearly declining, right? But here's the thing about a banner ad: that you got to have the confidence to go back to somebody with and say, well, can you click on a billboard?
And I've used that argument.
Is it possible to click on a television commercial? Hold on, let me open up this magazine.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. Nothing's happening. I keep clicking on this magazine and nothing happens. So yes, your click-through rate's low, right? I mean, the guy's only got 150 click-throughs
Typically
on.
less than 1%. I mean,
Absolutely. We're absolutely less than
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Try to explain that to the advertiser, right?
Yeah.
But-
Great, it's 1%.
But the only difference then is, so now, to me, I think you just, the playing field is just a little bit more level where you don't have as much of an advantage as the other guy. Oh, wait a minute, tell me again, is the magazine ad trackable? Can I target that at a particular demo? Oh, I can't. What about the billboard ad? Do you want to sell, skinny jeans, but there's a lot of old people driving by there and they're all overweight. Do they want those? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. My banner ads must suck. Actually, they don't. You just have to be willing to kind of go back at the guy and sort of combat conventional. I mean, it's okay. You can tell I've had that conversation a lot, right? So,
Well, for the three of you, are any of your editorial staff involved with the creation or providing of the content? And if so, how did you implement that when you first started doing it? Did you get pushback from them when you decided to do that? And how did you handle that?
Mr.
yes. Oh, they're here.
Okay.
And I mean, you guys weigh in. You have been involved on different levels with helping with kind of doing branded contents for brands at different times, and there's no wrong answer to that. So that's why I brought you. Sometimes that's been challenging, hasn't it?
I hate doing sponsored content.
Okay.
I hate it.
But you do it
Yeah,
because he tells you to, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
and I'm glad to do it because I know it makes us the company money, but man, it makes me feel dirty. Like I am a journalist, it's not what I do. But I'm happy to do it, and just because I know I look at the big picture and like I know in the long run this is going to help, and you just got to do what you got to do, especially in a small organization.
Were you with the organization when that started, when that began? Meaning when the sponsored content began?
Well, I think
I guess what I'm wondering is how did somebody specifically react to being told, hey, you're gonna have to do this now?
I think what we've grown to become, like when we started it, we would have to have reporters help write the content, which was really became a pain point. And we realized it's like, look, this just isn't a good idea. And increasingly, I don't think reporters are very much involved in writing the content anymore. So what we've done though, what's happened is the brand has evolved over time, is that our brand activations have become way more sophisticated. So like this team was involved in a huge brand activation with our local hospital system in celebration of February's Heart Month, where they did a 4-piece Facebook Live series where they literally moved through a heart attack with the surgeons, and they were reporting, and we had a roundtable afterwards with surgeons. All of it was broadcast on Facebook Live. It generated huge views for the hospital system. They were over the moon. But it truly was paid content, though. I mean, it was. But I
had
don't.
more public service, so you guys.
Well, I
were
will
okay with it.
say that was cool. Like I got to ride an ambulance. That was cool. The part that makes me like cringe is when I have to write articles in the voice of an advertiser. You know what I mean? Where it's like I'm trying to sell something, because number one, I don't really know how to do that. I have writing skills, but not marketing skills or things like that. So it's a little cringy because I don't feel comfortable because I don't feel like I know what I'm doing when I do that. And then, like I said, just feeling like this is not what journalists do. But really, we've gotten away from that a lot as far as our, like me personally or our staff doing that kind of stuff. The other stuff, like the Facebook Live event,
or we just recently made some videos and stuff. That where it kind
So
of marries.
if there's content that you're creating that you feel that if you had chosen or you had that idea as a topic to write about anyway, then you're fine with it.
And
But
like
if
you
it
said,
deviates and
sometimes
it's
it's
something
public
that you
service.
would, right.
And Noah actually does a video series where sometimes, and it is sponsored, and it's like a car thing. If you've ever seen like James Corden's car karaoke, where he's got the cameras and stuff, he hosts a show where he drives around and interviews people, and it is sponsored. It's technically sponsored content because we get a donation of a car from a local dealership. We plug the car in the beginning of it,
I take
but
that idea,
also
that's great.
It's another way that I've found, if you were in the previous thing, it's another great way to reach millennials. Because people, like I've interviewed people from local musical talent who come in to be a part of the musical, all the way to the Humane Society. Everyone loves looking at little puppies, and yeah, so that's another thing that gets a lot of attention and a lot of good bang for the buck.
So what do you do with the car again?
Yeah, explain.
Drive?
Yeah. So
3 GoPros.
Yeah,
one car.
so we have four faux pros. They're actually like Dow brand GoPros, and they are significantly cheaper than GoPros. I don't remember exactly what the price is for a GoPro, but we pay $50 per camera.
Okay, all right.
And so they have little fixed parts to it. It's almost like you get to build with Legos, but on one end of it you get like a suction cup to piece.
So you drive the car around?
Yeah. So I have a driver because I don't drive my own car because I'm too young and other stuff to have be able to drive the car.
You couldn't qualify for the dealer's insurance because it wasn't old.
Yeah. So we have our marketing director drive around while I interview someone in the car, and so
all right.
I like it personally because like I always growing up read sports things in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and I always wondered what kind of questions were being asked to get the responses, and so this sort of helps feed my childhood questions of this is how like you know what the question is, and now you know what the answer was, and I think that people hopefully can relate to that. But also, it's really cool because it is almost like a free advertisement, right, for the people that I interview. Because the Humane Society is not getting any money charged. We're just getting money from the auto company.
The dealer sponsors the show, so it's
like a PR. It's a free advertisement for whoever's in the car with me. And
videos are usually
yeah, sometimes we do. Yeah.
You said show.
Yes.
And everything.
No.
No, that was actually. That'd be all those
Donnie
people around who like notice you while you're riding around, like, oh my gosh, this is running around.
That's
And it's over.
It's called Noah on
I'm
the
just
Road.
making some data here.
If you search YouTube for Noah on the Road, you'll find it.
I would say I'm not comfortable with having writers who are journalists who work for me write sponsored content, and I myself am not, even though I have done that job in other jobs and communications jobs I've had in my life. I could do it, and in fact I'm meeting with a friend who owns a marketing and communications company next week to talk about this very topic of having us share, maybe have some agreements where when I get those kinds of requests, I can just shoot those over to him. Because it does make me feel creepy. The idea of me doing it myself, I could do it, but I just don't want to. I just feel like I can't in my head make that separation. I think it's important to offer that service, which is why I'm trying to find somebody else to do it for me, but I don't want to do it.
What I've been doing is we just sponsor.
No, go ahead. No.
So we just focus on the business owner. We tell their story as opposed to it's more of a feature article. We're promoting the business by telling people who the owners are.
Right.
So it's not like schlepping a product.
Right. Yeah.
We've used it as almost like a testing ground for writers. So they've started writing sponsored content, freelance writers, and then they've moved over to editorial. So it's it was a good way for them to get experience, for us to see how they write, how they handle uncomfortable situations, and then some have moved over to editorial, and they don't write sponsored content anymore. But for a freelancer, it's great. There are people. We have one writer in particular. He likes doing this, and he really writes. He doesn't really try to talk like the advertiser. He really tries to talk like you or me. Like us, and a lot of times it is in first person, not always, it depends what it is, but we did a whole campaign with, there's something called Reach Now, which is like car sharing, and we did staycations in Brooklyn. And so or doing errands in Brooklyn, and he wrote about it, just, using the Reach Now car, how easy it was, and then he went here and he wrote there, and so it was kind of a travel piece as well as a sponsored piece. So.
Phil, is your editorial staff involved in?
Yes, we're dirty.
No judging.
We don't have enough.
It's whatever makes is comfortable for you.
Well, it's funny because, for the record, I don't love it either.
Yeah.
And as we've become a little bit more mature as a company, we've been able to start to hire and achieve that separation where, like in our marketing department now, we have 2 people that have experience writing sponsored content. That was one of the reasons I hired them, was because it was like, okay, we can offload this stuff now because we can run this stuff right out of the business department. They, to your credit, you're like, they're good at this, I'm not, I don't even like it. We were pounding square pegs into round holes because we didn't have the money to do it any other way.
But if I understand, you were okay with it because you had to be. You're okay with it because you have to be, and you're not comfortable with it. But it's not a yes or no. It's just more of a what you're comfortable with, what you can live with.
Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of figuring it out as we go along.
Okay.
I mean, the key, I think, at least on our side, is we try really hard in our organization to have a culture where our staff can call bullshit on the highest levels of the organization, and they do regularly, and that's great because and there's a no penalty zone with that. Like it's just go ahead if you don't like, And fortunately, what that's led to is a culture where if a staff member just isn't comfortable, they don't feel, they don't feel like maybe they're not comfortable that they'll do a good job, or they're not comfortable because they've never done that before, or oh my God, you want me to shoot video? I've never done that before. Can you have somebody help me? Or this is making me feel weird. We're fortunate enough that the culture allows us to say, okay, I'll slot in for you because I don't feel weird about that. Will you help me with this other thing that you don't feel weird about? Yeah, totally. Okay, well, let's trade. It works out.
Obviously, it's an evolving area. Ideally, it should be like higher value. But if you look at it, from an overall revenue perspective, what percentage is that of your revenue? You talked about, impression-based advertising, your point, you gotta hit the volumes for that, because the CPMs, it's always on downward pressure. So this is kind of like an up-and-coming area.
15% and rising.
15% and rising.
Yeah.
Same for
I'd say that's pretty close for me as well.
Okay.
What are the, I guess, the metrics that you point to at the end for the advertisers? Is it quickly or strictly like the page views? I mean, this is how many people read it, but what do you try to emphasize to the customer to try to back up?
What I try to do is to get them to include something that will help them to see what the results are, like if they're trying to get attendance at a class, for example, or if they're trying to have something that they can track themselves so that because it's hard. I mean, you may have some systems for that, but from our standpoint, we had one of my success stories, we had a law firm that did sponsored content on how to choose the right attorney, and they were offering a book, it's a fairly typical thing, and he had a specific URL in there so he could tell what was coming from us. And the truth is that he was spending $5,000 to advertise with the local TV stations with the same thing, and he got 12 orders for books. We charged him $300, and he got 6 books ordered. So I felt pretty good about that.
In our case, one of the things that we help clients try to understand is that a piece of content is a shareable asset now. And we're fighting every day to keep our 1% share of the national digital ad spend while Google and Facebook get the other 99%. So we're fighting a good fight every single day to keep our 1% share, or whatever that stupid number is. But we go back to the client, and this is why it costs a little bit more, is we say, look, we're giving you an asset that is evergreen and shareable, and you can activate that asset. The value that we're providing is that we're going to publish it on a platform, that is going to organically give validity to that asset. You now are responsible and can activate that asset either organically on your own Facebook channel or by putting $100 behind whatever it was that we published to reach 12,000 people with that asset that was carefully crafted and that you paid for. So it's about but this is a training on the account executives point where they have to understand what the long tail on sponsored content is and be able to justify that value to
Now, do you coordinate any paid amplification for them, or do you leave it up to the customer to do it themselves?
We typically will not sell boosts on our platforms. So like we won't publish it on our platform and then put $100 behind it to amplify it on our platform. But what we often do is we try to pivot that into Facebook management on their platform. And so our business side, we manage probably a dozen Facebook pages for area brands where we manage their ad spend on Facebook, and we charge them for the expertise of managing their ad spend.
Can you talk about why you want to do it on your side?
Again, it's about I'm really trying to move toward giving our team some guardrails in terms of we're not going to promote this as artificially promote this under our brand as a piece of news that is not necessarily news. We've done it before.
Even if you tag them and it's more.
That's what we're trying to navigate through though, is to figure out, because Facebook just changed the rules 3 months ago, is that if you don't tag the brand in a post that appears like a co-branded post, they won't publish the post. I got a notification from Facebook just yesterday that we published a weather update, which is co-sponsored by a spa company. The Fun Center Pools and Spas weekend weather update. Well, our social media guy forgot to tag Fun Center, and so the post got killed. And Facebook changed this stuff. We love us some Facebook, right? And it's great. But when they change these algorithms, we've got a person that sits there and does nothing but work in that space, and it's hard for him to keep up. So what we've tried to do is pivot that into management services for brands, because go to Facebook Business Manager right now and you tell me how easy it is for you to really understand the intricacies of how powerful that piece of back-end platform is now. It is complicated and powerful, and there's a reason why they're getting 99% of the ad volume. It's because they have created an engine that is difficult to deal with. And there's ways you can, but we looked at it like, well, if you can't beat them, let's get really good at it and sell our services. Let's sell intellectual property at a really high multiple, and let's deliver value for brands. And so we're doing it.
I think we're out of time.
All right, folks, there's food outside.